Welcome to Embodying Information. This workshop is on creating somatic experiences of data through dance. My name is Ilya Vidrin. I am a postdoctoral associate in theater and creative practice here at Northeastern, and I'm joined today by Laura Perovich, who's assistant professor in art and design, and Nicole Zizzi, who works in research and communications at the Center for Design. We all are drawing on experiences in dance to engage questions of affect. What does it mean to experience data through movement? So for those of you that are joining asynchronously, now is a good time to use this QR code, and we will give a link in the chat as well. And please feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions. This project, Embodying Information, is part of a larger project in thinking about physicalization of data through performance. And we've got two branches. One is the one that Laura and Nicole and I work on, which is data dancing. We engage formal approaches. We think about translating data, visualization, and attributes through abstract movement into abstract movement with abstract movement. And our collaborators, Raul, Victoria, Jesse, and Amanda, work on the data theater side, engaging narrative approaches for acting out data and the stories behind. So one of our guiding questions is really thinking about creating felt experiences of data through dance. And this is not I was going to say it's not a new thing, but it is relatively new, and it's coming from a bunch of different discourses. One of them is soma design, obviously dance and somatic practices. We're also thinking about things like embodied cognition, data physicalization, interaction design, and human-computer interaction, where movement, especially expressive movement, is pretty prevalent. So as we move through the workshop, I'm going to invite you to consider moving without judgment. There's no right or wrong way to move. I'm inviting you to listen to your body and your limits. Both of those will play a role as we think about engaging data through movement. And if you can have your cameras on, we invite you to do so, but obviously no pressure. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and lead us through a little warm-up. So wherever you are, if you're sitting, please move to the edge of your seat so you're not touching the back of your chair. I'm going to adjust this way, although there's a window behind me. So we're going to start with some basic formal principles of movement just to establish a shared vocabulary. So starting off with very simple rotation, looking to the left, looking straight ahead, and looking to the right. Very nice. One more time, looking to the left, looking straight ahead, and looking to the right. Amazing. We're going to do the same thing. If you can place your hand on your chest, we're going to rotate the upper body to the left, center, and rotate to the right. Center. One more time. Rotate to the left, center, and to the right. And center. Great. So that's one degree of freedom for us. Yes, this idea of rotation. We're going to use that. We're going to hold on to it. Second degree of freedom is going to be pitching. So we're going to look down, straight ahead, and look up. Straight ahead, looking down, straight ahead, and looking up. Straight ahead. And this time we're going to pitch forward a little bit. Take your shoulders and your head forward. Align the spine, look back, maybe see the ceiling. Yes, forward, pitching forward, neutral spine, and pitching back. Very nice. So that's our second degree of freedom. Let's come back to rotation for a second. Rotate left and right and left and right, bringing a little speed into it. And looking down and up. And down and up. Very nice. 2 degrees of freedom. Our third degree of freedom is a side bend. So we're going to Contract over the spine a little bit. Align and contract the other direction. Yes. Little seeker, little bend to the side. Like a reed blowing in the wind. That's the metaphor I like to use. Yes. One more time to the left. You can switch hands if you'd like. And to the right. Nice. So there's 3 degrees of freedom for us, just to review. Rotation, left and right. Pitching, forward and back. And side bending. Great. So these are just essentially design principles, thinking of these basic ways of moving. So we're going to take our hands, warm up our hands if it's available to you, creating some friction. Yes, count with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and stop. Feel that tingling sensation. So this is part of where my interest in data and dance interact, because I feel something very robust in my hands right now, but it's not visible. Yes, you feel that tingling sensation. There's an experience happening, but it's beyond the visual, it's kinesthetic, right? So if we bring this kinesthetic idea into our 3 principles just now, we can talk about effort, yeah? So we've got 3 degrees of freedom. If we rotate, imagine like you're moving through, let's say, peanut butter, right? That rotation is going to be slightly more challenging. You're going to engage your spine and the muscles around your spine in a different way. Yes? Now imagine like you're moving in water. There's a little bit of more freedom. Yes? Imagine like you're moving in a fog, right? Total freedom. Just that rotation. Same thing, moving forward. Imagine like you're moving in peanut butter. Yes, welcome to those just joining. We're just warming up our bodies. 3 degrees of freedom, pitching backwards, pitching forwards. Find that rotation again. And that side bend. Imagine like you're moving this time through molasses, a little bit thicker. Yes. It's not just our speed that's changing, right? I'm not moving slower. Try and move as fast as you can through molasses. It slows you down, but there's a lot of effort, right? You're toning your body. Good. All right. That's our little warm up from me. I'm going to pass it off to Nicole to start thinking a little bit more about shape.
All right, thank you, Ilya. I am here with some of my colleagues joining me. So they are taking this workshop with all of us. I also just want to say real quickly that everything we do today can be done in a seated position if that's all that is accessible to you, or if that's all that you want to be doing with your movement. I will try to remember to give modifications for all my prompts for a seated version, and if I forget and that's what you are looking for, feel free to just unmute yourself and call out to me and say, hey, can I have a modification please, and I will remember to do it to you. So now we are going to explore making some shapes. So hold on, we're gonna all right. So we're going to start with our hands again. Let's rub them together to get that kinesthetic awareness activated. And then let the movement settle and feel that tingling. Nice. And now we're gonna trace on our hand, like we're finger painting, we're gonna trace the first letter of our name. So this can be in whatever style text you like, serif, sans serif, You guys are designers, you definitely have preferences. And see if you can come up with different ways of tracing the letter on your palm. And see if you can find the typeface that you like the most. And if you would like to transfer your tracing into the space in front of you, so we're finger painting in the air in front of us. Just make sure I'm following everything. And once you start to get a feel for the shape and how you like it in your body, we are going to make that shape. So I'm going to stand up here. You guys can stay seated or stand if you like. And my name is Nicole, so I'm going to make an N, and I'm going to make the shape of an N, and I'm going to hold it. And I'm going to see if I can find different ways of making an N. And you can, if you don't feel comfortable or if you have an injury with your whole body movement, you can stick to your hands, your elbows, your shoulders, whatever feels good for you. And see if you can find that shape of your letter, the letter.
Oh, letter hard.
Nice, you guys all look so good. And while you're doing this, see if you can move between different typefaces of that letter. And once you find one, pause in it for a few seconds, and then move like peanut butter into the next shape of the letter. And try going between those two shapes a few times and see how it feels. Is there one version of the letter that feels better in your body? Or one that feels less comfortable? Or one that feels like a new way of moving for you? Just take notice. And see if you can switch up the effort between your poses. So can you go fast between them? I see some really awesome letters here. Nice. And now we are going to find an object in the room with you. And can we get my screen spotlighted, please?
We can't spotlight in
pinned
rooms, but you're pinned already.
Yep. Okay, great. All right. Now find an object in the room. Here we go. Phone, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're gonna embody this object. So first we're gonna start by tracing the object along different dimensions of it. And if you pick an object that's really big, that's okay too. Just don't try to pick it up if you can't pick it up. We don't want any injuries. So I have my water bottle here. Let's see if you can see it. I'm circling and tracing the bottom of it. And I'm tracing the sides of it. And I'm tracing the width of it. And I'm feeling that curve as I go along the width. And now, if you're comfortable, close your eyes while you're doing this. And see if you can start to make a picture in your mind as you are tracing the shape with your finger. Or the object. And once you feel like you have a good picture in your mind, you can set the object down or step away from it. And now we are going to scale up our object if it's not already large. And we are going to trace it in the air now. So the same dimensions that we were tracing before, this is the bottom of my water bottle here. We're going to make large scale. So if my water bottle is as tall as me, I go up and down with my finger. And I might do some curving. And if you want to add some body movement, you can. If that's too much for you, that's all right. And once you're comfortable with that, see if you can keep doing it with your eyes closed. And see if that changes your experience of the tracing of the object. Nice. I see some really beautiful movement quality going on. And once you feel like you have a picture in your mind's eye, we'll stop our tracing for a second and close our eyes and imagine that object that we just traced in front of us as if we were doing VR painting. And now we're going to step inside of it. And once you're inside of it, see if you can make your body the shape of the object. Instead of tracing, now we're making the shape. There is no right or wrong here.
Does that look like a ball?
And while you're making the shape, if you want to find two versions of the shape, like we did with our name, you can move between two versions of that shape. So if this is one version of my shape, this can be my one pose. And then if this is my other, I can move between those two. And as you're doing this, start to take notice of the difference in making the shape and tracing the shape with your body. Nice, guys. All right. And now we're going to incorporate the first letter of my name again. So if you in your brain can hold 4 poses, then you can do this with 4 poses. Otherwise, I'm going to prompt it with 2. One of your favorite letter pose. So this was my favorite N version. And then my favorite object was this pose. So I'm going to go in between those 2 poses now. And I'm going to pay attention to what it feels like while I'm moving between the poses before I hit them. Or shapes, sorry. Pose is a dance word for shape of the body. And if you're feeling creative, you can bring in your other versions of your shape. You can start to introduce some new shapes as you're doing it. And see if as you continue to move, if you're even still making the same shape. That's all right if you're not. See how the movement changed your experience of the shape. Maybe the shape is still there in your mind, maybe it's not. Nice. And once you feel ready, we're going to find a place of stillness and stop. Let's reach our arms up really tall and crawl ourselves in like a ball as small as we can get. And one more time, open. I like to call this a starfish. And a close to a ball. And shake it out however you need to. Nice. All right. Now we are going to pause for a reflection. So if you have notebooks, Post-its, something you can take notes on, We are going to answer these questions, and you can answer in whatever way works best for you. If you're a sketcher and you don't like to write, you can sketch. If you don't like to sketch, you like to write, you can write, you can bullet point, whatever works for you. You can do abstract drawings if that's what it works. And we will, at the end of this, ask if you are comfortable sharing these reflections with us. We have a link for you to upload them, and it will help us as we design further iterations of this workshop. So, the 3 questions are up on the screen, and I will read them for you. And these are just starting points. So if your reflection goes off topic a little bit, but it started at one of these questions, that's great. So try to see if you can remember what it was like to trace the object. What was it like to be the object? And how did your individual body parts move as you were going from one pose to the other? Did you pay attention to that? Could you not pay attention to it? Was it too much information? All right, let's do 1 more minute of reflection, and you can always come back to these at the end of the workshop, or at the end of the day, or if you want to reflect on this tomorrow, we would love that data too, so whatever works for you. And Laura, I'll pass it on. You can start when the next minute is up.
Great, so we'll start into our next activity where we're going to move towards using similar kind of techniques and movements, but working with data this time. So we're going to start by trying to represent some information through the body using these tracing techniques. So in the data activities we're going to do today, we're going to be working with different versions of this data on beer sales in taverns in Massachusetts over time. So just to get familiar with this data, you can see on the x-axis, so on the horizontal part, we have different years represented. So the data starts in 2008 and goes through 2019. And then on the y-axis, we see the number of barrels of beer sold in taverns, in this case in Massachusetts, by each year. So we're starting down, well, the lowest value here on the y-axis is 0, and then it's units of 20,000 all the way up to 100,000 as the final, or 90,000 as the final top value. And the graph we're starting with is a line graph. So at each year, there's a point, and that's showing you the number of barrels of beer sold, and then it's all connected. So now that we're situated with the data, let's try and see if we can engage with it through movement. So we're going to start again with the tracing activity. So if you have a screen in front of you, or if you're in person, try to imagine that screen in front of you and start by even tracing the data directly on the screen or hovering right above it. So reach for that first point and just follow the line with your finger. And we'll do this a few times. And see if there's different ways that you can follow this with your finger. Follow it slowly or quickly. You could follow it incrementally, where you stop at each point. Or you could use a gesture that's more fluid and sort of flows between them. You can also think about following it very accurately or precisely, trying to get to the exact path of the line versus following it in a way that's a little more general and just shows the bumps and the trends and the gist of the line. So now we're going to start moving away from the screen a little bit and making that tracing gesture larger. So scale up the graph in your mind and see how you can follow it. And practice with different sizes. You could still think about making a really small one that's right in front of you, or a really big one that moves you through the room. And again, you can think about, do you want it to be very precise? Do you want to stop at each point and pause? Or is this a smoother gesture that you want to make? And how does that feel for you and your body? Now we're going to try and scale it even more. So if before you were mostly focusing on tracing with your finger or with your arm, try and see if you can move your whole body through this tracing. You might put your hands on your chest or on your center and think of that as the part of your body that's tracing a line. You're making a gesture that shows the line. And feel what that's like with different efforts or speeds, different kinds of precision in the movements. So find one of those movements, either a gesture with your arm or with your body or with your hands, that feels right to you, that feels good to you. And repeat it a number of times. This is something we'll come back to later. So try to get that movement into your body so you can remember it for later in the workshop. And you can still experiment with a few ones here until you feel like there's one you can really settle into. So do your gesture 3 more times, and then we'll move to the next part. Good, so finish up your gestures, and again, move into a place of stillness for a second. Now let your body process what it's done and feel where you are. Good, so take some deep breaths. In, out. in, out, in, and out. Great. So I'll pass it on to Nicole now to work on our second data activity.
All right, if anyone needs some water, I will say that we'll take a few minutes to get some water if you need it. If you don't have it right by you, make sure you're hydrating. And my coworker told me that today is International Dance Day, and I didn't even know. So thank you for dancing with us on International Dance Day. If you have an Apple Watch, there's a challenge to dance 20 minutes today. Make sure you turn it on.
Turn it on.
All right. Now we are going to represent some information through the body using some design principles that I think all of us could probably understand. We're going to use scale, space, and shape. And so this time we're going to use a bar graph, and we're going to, while we're doing this, we're going to think about how it may feel different from the line graph. And if you can't focus on that, in your brain, too many things at the same time, that's okay. You can put the other combo, the other movement phrase aside. So first time through, we are going to look at scale. So we are going to adjust our height to match the bar's height. And so this is going to take a few times going through to calibrate our scale, because I know the first time I did something like this, I got too big, and by the time I got to 2016, I didn't have anywhere else to go. So this is a trial and error. So if we start at 2008, try to make a guesstimate of how tall that would be. And we're going to take our full height with our arms up is going to be the top of the graph, if that makes sense. And this, if you want to do this sitting down, you can do this with the pitch of your body, and you can say that this is 0 and this is the tallest of the graph if seated is what you want. So let's start with 2008, and then we'll look at 2009 together, and then the way I like to do this is I like to go back to 2008 and iteratively add on a bar each time. So I'll go back to 2008, 2009, 2010, and then back down to 2008. So while I'm doing this, I'm also building a muscle memory so we can remember this for later. So 2008, 2009, 10, 11. And I'm going to let everyone go at their own pace. I know that my legs are getting tired already, so if you need to adjust, do what you need for your body, and we will give a few minutes to get through the entire graph. And once you get to a place where you're comfortable with your changing in height, do it another 3 times, and then we'll move on. And while you're doing this, we are paying attention to how it feels to move from one bar height to the next bar height, and seeing how our bodies interpret a change in scale as the height of our body. All right. Let's do it one more time through on our own, and then I will prompt us through all together. We'll go through each bar height at the same time. So about 1 more minute of this exploration. All right, now let's do it together. All right, everyone find your 2008 bar in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, I messed up my It's hard to do this while talking it. Let's do that 2 more times together. All right, 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Nice. Does anyone have any questions before we do it one last time? Feeling good? All right. Here we go. 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Nice. So that was just our first layer of this exploration. So that was scale. Now we're going to pay attention to space. And we're going to step forward and backwards to represent the height of the bar. So there's a little GIF of thinking about placing the graph on the floor in front of you. So then we're going to walk up to the height of the bar and walk back down to the x-axis. Kind of like this GIF is very sillily showing. Just made up that word. Dancers do that. All right, so why don't the 3 of us, why don't we use the same, we'll say that this is our x-axis. So we're going to do something very similar to what we just did, but instead of our height of our body, we're just going to walk back and forth. So as a calibration for myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at 2017, and I'm going to walk over here, and I'm going to say, this is where my 2017 bar ends, and I'm going to try to adjust how much I walk for the other bars based on that.
2017.
Because 2017 is the tallest bar, yeah. Or it could be, this could be your 2017, or it could be the top of the graph, whichever your brain likes better. So first, if I'm doing 2008, I'll go step forward, and then I'll go back to the x-axis. 2009, go a little further, and then back. And then 2010, and so on. So now the scale has become the number of steps we take in space. And